Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopichana Vallabha Girivana Dhari Gopichana Vallabha Girivana Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivana Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajagacharya Stota Satashishimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. ISKCON founder, BBT founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parirajagacharya Stota Satashishimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada Ki. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki. Brahmsko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki. Shri Navadweep Mayapur Dham Ki. Shri Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki. Ganga Maya Ki. Yamuna Maya Ki. Bhakti Devi Ki. Tulasi Devi Ki. Shamaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. So today it's Ekadasi, so we'll be reading from Srila Prabhupada lilamrta. And it's always nice that we can speak about and hear about Srila Prabhupada. It actually gives us more of an appreciation for Prabhupada, and gratitude is actually a really, really important quality for us to also develop. And my Guru Maharaj would, he told me and many of my other God family, read about Prabhupada, learn more about Prabhupada. So it was actually very, very important for him. And also, all the spiritual masters are actually bringing us closer to Srila Prabhupada. Because without him, none of this would happen. None of us would be here, unless you were already some pure devotee in a previous life. But we are only here because of Srila Prabhupada. So it's wonderful that actually at our temple we have on Saturdays we read Transcendental Diaries, on Ekadasi we read Prabhupada lilamrta. So it's actually really, really wonderful and sweet, and everyone loves hearing about Prabhupada. And there's actually so much out there about Prabhupada. There's all of those Prabhupada memories that everyone shares and talks about that you can find on YouTube. There's so many books by his disciples. So there's ample information out there. So we are reading from a chapter called A Lot of Ground to be Covered. And right now Prabhupada and his disciples are in India. So they're going to talk about this Pandal program that they are putting together in Bombay. So we'll start reading. ISKCON's Bombay headquarters was a 4-room flat on the 7th floor of the Akash Ganga building. Rent was nearly 3,000 rupees a month, and the devotees had no guaranteed monthly income. Yet because the building was in a vital, prestigious location, Prabhupada had taken the risk. Such a headquarters would be a necessary base for the preaching he wanted to do in Bombay. And his next preaching would be a grand 11-day Pandal program. If you're going to hunt, Prabhupada said, then you should hunt for a rhinoceros. In that way, if you don't succeed, everyone will simply say, oh, it couldn't be done anyway. But if you do succeed, then everyone will be surprised. Everyone will be amazed. So Prabhupada, he's got really high expectations and really is very ambitious. So he had this huge kind of event that he wanted to do, and most people were thinking it cannot be done. And he said, if you're gonna have a goal, reach for the stars basically, because if you don't succeed, everyone expected that, but if you do succeed, people will be wildly amazed by it. So Prabhupada really emphasized preaching a lot. He risked a lot for preaching, and he would put any efforts he could into his preaching programs. And this exactly was that. He wanted to go all out for this Pandal program because it was for his preaching. As Prabhupada revealed his plans for a gigantic Pandal festival, the devotees became keenly aware that Prabhupada's inspiration was motivating all their preaching. Without him, they could never attempt anything so bold and ambitious as a giant Pandal festival in Bombay. So Prabhupada, with his ambitious plans for preaching, it was really inspiring to all of the devotees, because if they were on their own, they would never have thought of such, a grand program to put together. So in this way, it's also important for us to get that inspiration from these really big stalwart preachers that come and visit us, because they have a vision that's greater than our own. And when we see how enthusiastic they are, then it inspires us too. Often the American and European disciples had been billed along with him as if of equal importance. But the devotees saw themselves as only foolish servants trying to help the genuine pure devotee of the Lord. Although Prabhupada credited his disciples knew that Prabhupada was Krishna's empowered representative. He was their authority and personal link to Krishna. His words and actions evinced full transcendental potency. As Krishna was unlimited, Srila Prabhupada, Krishna's dearmost friend, was entitled to demand unlimited service on Krishna's behalf. In the service of Krishna, no project was impossible. Impossible, Prabhupada said, was a word in a fool's dictionary. So his disciples, although they, only at this point knew Prabhupada for 4 or 5 years, they already knew that he was an empowered representative of Krishna. And even though in this paragraph they said that they were even seen as equal importance of Prabhupada, they knew that they were nothing compared to Prabhupada. And as it says here, that they acted like fools in front of him. So that's a good instruction for all of us, that no matter how long we've been in the movement or how much we've done, we are a fool in front of the spiritual master. And here Prabhupada is saying that impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So when Krishna is on your side and your intention is right, then there's nothing stopping you from really going big with these preaching programs. Yesterday we had invited some of our students to come visit the temple, and we really didn't have time to plan anything. Actually, the morning of the program, we had to quickly put together something of what we were going to do, because everything was just so busy that we didn't have time to think of what to do. And we were, frantically trying to arrange things, and we were worried, oh no, what's going to happen? And, Krishna really came through, and it was such a wonderful program, and the students were so happy. And they didn't even want to leave, we're like, okay, the taxi's here, time to go. And they're like, no, we must stay. So they were so happy. And that's just the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And it was interesting because we we brought them at a time when the curtains were closed. So actually all that they saw was Prabhupada. And we had a question and answer session with them, and we had some questions about, who is Prabhupada. So it was really wonderful to see them, inquire about Srila Prabhupada, and we got to speak about Prabhupada and the importance of respecting and revering the teacher that has taught us so much. So it was by Prabhupada's mercy that we had a successful preaching program, even though we had zero time to actually really plan. But I mean, the prasadam, that was sorted out, luckily. That was already planned, but everything else wasn't. So Prabhupada was really kind and gave us a very successful program, and he brought students that were genuinely interested and actually were so enthusiastic, and you could see were open to inquiring and seeking. So it was all thanks to Srila Prabhupada. But as Prabhupada unfolded his plans for the Pandal festival, the devotees doubted. How could they ever raise the money? How could they erect such a huge tent? Where would they get so much food? And who would cook it? Prabhupada seemed amused at their doubts. You are all Americans, he said. So what is the use of being American unless you do something wonderful? So that's quite interesting. We all have our doubts, like whenever we think of trying to do a program on a grand scale, we all have doubts. Well, I know I do. You always think, how are we going to put this together? Where's the money going to come from? So these doubts are normal. But Prabhupada, he knew that he didn't have to really endeavor too much. He had to just delegate some services to his disciples and things would get done, because he knew that Krishna was on his side. So, and Prabhupada here, he's laughing. He's saying, you are Americans. You come from this wealthy country. You have all of these resources and facilities. You should know how to do these things. Why call yourself Americans from a first world country if you can't do something great with your good birth materially? A Bombay Pandal, Prabhupada said, would be the perfect way to link America's ingenuity with India's spirituality. He gave the examples of a blind man and a lame man. Although separately they are helpless. By cooperating, the blind man carrying the lame man on his shoulders, and the lame man giving directions, the two can work successfully. America, because of materialism and ignorance of God, was blind, and India, because of foreign invasions, poverty, and misinterpretations of Vedic knowledge, was lame. America had technological advancement and wealth, and India had spiritual knowledge. The job of the Krishna consciousness movement was to combine the two strengths and uplift the world. And one practical application would be the Bombay Pandal festival. So Prabhupada could see this. He had that vision that if we combine these two forces, then great things can really happen. India has all of the spiritual knowledge and that spiritual wealth, and America has money, technology, and they have the influence of the whole world. So he knew that combining these two forces would be revolutionary. Prabhupada divided the work, assigning Shyamasundara to publicity, Tamal Krishna to the Pandal arrangements, Giriraj to fundraising, and Madhurya to the scheduled programs on stage. Catching Prabhupada's spirit of shooting the rhinoceros, Shyamasundara organized a massive publicity campaign with giant posters and banners strung across the streets announcing, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada will speak in English language about the science of God. Prasadam distribution and bhajang singing will be led by his American and European bhaktas. Hare Krishna Festival at Cross Maiden, March 25 to April 4. So they knew the power of advertising, so he had these huge banners, posters everywhere. And, now it's a little bit different because people are more on, online and social media. So, now we can really try utilize advertising on these platforms, because that is actually the most popular form of advertising now, is targeting on social media. So maybe we can also do that. So Giriraj said, Srila Prabhupada took Bombay by storm. The whole city was alive with excitement about the Hare Krishna festival. We had banners at all the major intersections in Bombay. We had posters up on all the walls, many posters on every wall, and we had very big advertisements in the newspaper with a beautiful picture of Srila Prabhupada superimposed over a globe, and the words, Bhagavad Dharma Discourses, a Hare Krishna festival, world preacher of Bhakti cult, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Day by day, the momentum grew more and more, and every day something new was happening. Finally, in the last 2 days, we got a huge billboard at Victoria train station, the busiest intersection of downtown Bombay. By then, everyone knew so much about the festival and where it was going to be, and everything that all this billboard said was Hare Krishna in huge letters. By then, everyone knew. So just these 2 huge words, Hare Krishna, was enough. Then Shyamasundar had arranged for a big helium-filled balloon that was attached to a very long rope at the cross made inside. That balloon just hovered over the city, and there was a streamer attached to the balloon saying, Hare Krishna Festival. It was real American ingenuity, flair, and dynamism. So he had gone so all out with the advertising that, just 2 days before the festival, all that they now needed was Hare Krishna, and people knew exactly. And that's really, really smart because, they kind of infiltrated the city so much with this Pandal program that eventually you would just say Hare Krishna festival and people knew exactly what you were talking about. And the momentum was growing and it was building and everyone was so excited for it. Inspired by Shyamasundar's lead and taking up a spirit of competition, the other devotees worked at their projects with great enthusiasm. When Prabhupada called a meeting of the local ISKCON Life members and supporters, the turnout was disappointing, only about a dozen. And even those, on hearing the proportions of Prabhupada's plan, became hesitant. The festival would cost more than 100,000 rupees, although some life members doubted whether the devotees could actually execute. Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Gaura Hariya ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Although some life members doubted whether the devotees could actually execute such a large production, a handful of stalwarts, Sadaji Watlal, Chandulal Bal, Kartikeya Mahadevya, Kailash Seksarya, Ramchand Chabriya, Chidi Somani, and others vowed that they would do their best to help raise the funds. So it's interesting that the other devotees now, they wanted to become competitive with Shyamasundar because here he had these amazing advertisements all over and he really went all out. So it was then inspiring that sense of competition in the other devotees who were delegated other tasks for the Pandal program. And Prabhupada knew this about, people in the West, that they all just wanted to be better than each other. So he used that in service. And then it's what's the word? It purifies that kind of material desire and makes it spiritual. So even the life members who would always donate to Srila Prabhupada, they were also doubtful about this program and they were thinking, this is too much, how can it be done? But they still vowed their best to help raise the funds. Prabhupada remained actively involved, and he warned his disciples to be wary of cheaters during their business transactions. Every night, the devotees would report to him, and he would ask about many details. He wanted the best location, the best work, and the best price. He wanted to know everything. What about the cooking area? Are all the devotees working to their full capacity? Is the mailing list complete? Have their invitations been sent? What about the latrines? What was the cost for the sound system? He scrutinized every detail with sharp, critical intelligence. So this is also a really good lesson for all of us. Prabhupada was involved with everything, and there was no detail that wasn't good enough to be the best. He wanted everything to be perfect, and he scrutinized every single detail. He didn't, everything he wanted to have to be perfect. So that's actually really amazing because, sometimes we put all of our focus on one thing and then we think, okay, this is, that doesn't have to be so good because, if we have this Swami doing the kirtan, then no one's going to care about anything else. But no, Prabhupada wanted everything to be the best. Giriraj's fundraising work was going well. He had donations solicited from businessmen and had printed a souvenir pamphlet. But he was feeling a strain, and he came to Prabhupada for solace. So he asked, "Can we use force in Krishna consciousness?" he asked. Prabhupada frowned. "No, we cannot use force." "But what if we see one of the workers is lazy on the job and not doing what he's supposed to?" "No," Prabhupada replied, "we can never use force." "Well, what about in making life members?" "Force we cannot use," Prabhupada repeated, "but we can trick them." He told a story about a boy who didn't want to do arithmetic. As soon as the teacher wrote 1 + 1 on the board, the boy wouldn't balk. So the teacher drew a picture of a cow on the board and asked the boys, "If a man has 1 cow and then he buys another cow, how many cows will he have?" The boy answered, 2. Thus the teacher began teaching him arithmetic, even though he was unwilling to learn. So I think it's actually a really interesting point where Giriraj Maharaj was asking Prabhupada, can we use force? And Prabhupada emphasized and repeated, no, you cannot use force. And then he even said, what if people are being lazy? And he said, no, you cannot use force. So that's something to always take note of. We can never force people to do service. We can never force people to be Krishna conscious. We can never force people to love Krishna. It has to all be done by choice. And even like when we are talking to people and preaching to people, we have to be very wary that we never force or push anything on them. Because as soon as they feel this has been forced on them, they will retract. And Prabhupada knew that. So he even said if some of the devotees are not working at full capacity, you cannot force them. But he said, but you can trick them. So meaning trick them in a way that they are doing it by their choice and they see it as their choice. So he gave this example of, instead of doing simple math, he says, 1 + 1 cow. So we have to always deliver it in a way that the person thinks it is coming from them, that the person thinks that this is my choice to do it. So we can lead them to Krishna consciousness in a way that they believe that it is their choice. So that's why you have to always be very cautious in the way that we preach and we package Krishna consciousness. So we continue. So people may be averse to serving Krishna, Prabhupada explained, but we can trick them and get them to serve without their knowing it. But we can never use force. These people are all businessmen. They are always calculating profit and loss. But they are also pious and they want to go to Krishna. So you have to convince them that by giving this money, they will gain so much by coming closer to Krishna. And that is the truth. When they are convinced, then they will give. It makes me think of how when we do our BYS programs at university, and we are doing it in a way that the students feel that what they are hearing is benefiting their life personally, that they can use whatever we are sharing in terms of knowledge as a way to help them in their life. And for them right now, it means materially. Will it help me have a better understanding of why I feel the way I do? Will it help me understand why I'm stressed when I'm writing exams? How can I cope with these things? So we are bringing it to them in a way that they feel like it will help them in their own personal lives. So here, Prabhupada is saying that, we can get the money from these businessmen, but they must understand in a way that they think that this is benefiting me. So Prabhupada had ordered from Jaipur 2 sets of large white marble deities, paid for by a donation from R.D. Birla. One set was to be installed in the Bombay temple, and the other worshipped at the Pandal, and later sent to one of the temples in the west. But the devotees were anxious that the deities be finished and shipped on time. And there were other sources of anxiety, right up until the very day of the festival. That sounds very familiar. Like with all of our big festivals, so many things are going wrong even on the day of the festival. So even with Prabhupada, it was the same thing. Pandal construction, prasadam distribution, seating arrangements, sound systems, whether these things would be ready on time and whether there would be enough money remained uncertain. But under Prabhupada's direction, the devotees worked steadily with firm faith in Krishna. And all turned out successful, with 10,000 people attending the first day and 20,000 that night. The devotees, including those just arrived from the west, numbered about 100, and the large stage easily accommodated them, with ample space for dancing kirtans. On stage, within a gorgeous golden-domed altar, surrounded by profuse flower arrangements, stood Radha and Krishna. Prabhupada's large Vyasasan, covered by a canopy, stood at stage center. Also on stage was a display of Prabhupada's books. The tall and spacious pandal, built to hold more than 30,000, was lined with fluorescent bulbs, and the stage glowed with colorful flashing lights. So Prabhupada really knew how to make things attractive. So he went all out to arrange that the stage looked beautiful and attractive. And he even had his books on the stage, because his books are also a worshipable deity. The program was kirtan, prasadam, a lecture, and slides, more kirtan and more prasadam. And the Bombayites, devotees at heart, displayed their sophistication and westernization, loved these very things. Radha and Krishna, kirtan and prasadam. And that all this was being presented by Westerners made the pandal especially attractive. And we see that even when we go to India, and when the locals see all of these Western devotees coming and taking Krishna consciousness and Vedic civilization, Vedic culture, so seriously, it also really inspires them. I remember the first time I went to Vrindavan, I made a friend there, and she was, she was a local there, and me and my friend who comes from Europe, she wanted to do an interview with us, and she wanted us to, so we spoke, and then she translated in Hindi, and basically the point of this interview was she wanted the local people of India to realize why must they become westernized when the Westerners are trying to take on Vedic culture. And so we were trying to convince them, you already have it. It is already here. Why do you want to throw it away for something much less? And so I thought that was really wonderful. So, use your whiteness in Krishna consciousness, and, help also make the local people also realize that, you already have the wealth, you already have everything. You don't need to, take up this Western culture. The cooks prepared prasadam at the pandal site, cooking over a hard coal fire and using big paddles to stir khichdi and halava in woks 8 feet across. Each night the devotees would serve thousands of plates. Prabhupada's appearance in the evening was always the high point. He would sit on his Vyasasan. Little Sarasvati would walk out and garland him, and the crowd would cheer. He would wait for the crowd to quieten, which never happened. So he would just begin speaking, his voice ringing over the powerful sound system. He titled his first lecture, "Modern Civilization is a Failure, and the only hope is Krishna consciousness." So imagine seeing that as the title of the lecture. And, Prabhupada knew that these big, sophisticated, wealthy businessmen were all coming to this Pandal program. And he wanted to title the program, "Modern Civilization is a Failure." So that must have been a very hard pill to swallow and very difficult for some of them to hear. But Prabhupada, he could pull off these things. Maybe not can do that, but Prabhupada could. Prabhupada sat, eyes half closed in concentration, addressing the large audience that had ever assembled to hear him. His speaking was particularly forceful. Let's swap mics. His speaking was particularly forceful as he glorified Krishna and criticized the enemies of Krishna. He spoke against governments that were not Krishna conscious and against gurus who neglected the worship of Krishna. He stressed the necessity of teaching Krishna's message to the whole world, while his godbrothers from the Bombay Gaudiya Math sat in the audience, listening respectfully. And you are practically seeing that all over the world, these Bhagavad Gita principles, Krishna, the Supreme Lord, is being accepted. All these boys and girls who are dancing in Krishna consciousness, 4 years back, they had never heard of Krishna. Of course, some of them knew Bhagavad Gita, because Bhagavad Gita is very widely read. But because Bhagavad Gita was not properly presented, although for the last 100 or 200 or more than that years, Bhagavad Gita is widely read all over the world. There was not a single Krishna Bhakta. But since Bhagavad Gita is being presented as it is, within 4 years there are hundreds and thousands of Krishna Bhaktas. That is our point, that you present the thing as it is, without any adulteration. So Prabhupada was being quite heavy in his preaching, and he was saying many very heavy points. And he was even saying that, yes, Bhagavad Gita was around, but all of them were not speaking the truth of Bhagavad Gita. So not a single Krishna Bhakta was made. So Prabhupada continues. So it is our mission. It is India's culture. People are hankering after this culture, Krishna culture. So you should prepare yourself to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Then India will conquer all over the world by this Krishna culture, rest assured. But we are hankering after help from others. Our government men go there in America. Please give us wheat. Please give us money. Please give us soldiers. Simply begging business. But here is a thing which you can give to them. Simply begging does not glorify your country. So Giriraj Maharaj then said, Prabhupada was preaching forcefully to the people of Bombay, and every evening the pandal was packed with at least 20,000 people. Srila Prabhupada would preach so strongly, emphasizing following religious principles. He knew that these people are Hindus, but they are not following these principles. Prabhupada was speaking so powerfully that I knew what he was saying would be hard for many of the audience to accept. So, Srila Prabhupada, he was able to speak these very heavy points to people, and he was able to forcefully preach in this way and really pierce the hearts of people because he had that purity. And he was able to do these things because of his purity. He was able to call people fools and rascals, and he was able to say these things. But we must never imitate, because unless we have that purity, we are not able to do that. People will actually, if we are so heavy and forceful, people will not actually accept what we have to say. But Prabhupada had such purity that if he said it, people could take it immediately. But with us, we also have to understand where we are in our spiritual developments and what spiritual stage we are on. Because if we don't have that same purity, if we are so forceful with our preaching, people will just walk away and find us to be, fanatical. So we have to do it in the way that seems natural and convincing to people. And we should also be fully and wholly convinced ourselves, because people, they can understand your conviction in what you are saying. If you are just reiterating what you read, but it hasn't become realized knowledge, it might not pierce as deeply as you would like it to. So if you are fully and wholly convinced, like Prabhupada was, you can say these things and people will fully believe it. But if we are not fully convinced ourselves, how can we convince others? So then Prabhupada continues, we have something to give to the whole world. That is Krishna consciousness. Why you neglect this treasure of Vedic knowledge? And the summarized knowledge is Bhagavad Gita. So if we simply try to understand Bhagavad Gita as it is, we understand immediately the science of God. And because we are all parts and parcels of God, we are actually hankering after uniting with God. That is our seeking. Anandamaya Bhyasat. God is Anandamaya, by nature full of pleasure. And we, being part and parcel of God, or Krishna, we are also Anandamaya. But we are seeking Ananda, pleasure, in a different atmosphere, in the material atmosphere. Therefore we are being baffled. The only remedy is that you take to Krishna consciousness, and you will be happy. So it is the duty of every Indian to understand this science. And Prabhupada also knew that he was in India at the time, and he could be a lot more forceful, because he also knew that even though some of the Indians there had taken to a Western culture, still they had that piety. So he could also deliver this message the way he did. But when he was in the West, he would preach differently. So we should always cater to the audience that we have. Like when we brought the students yesterday as well, we know we cannot just bring them to the RT immediately. They will be too confused. They won't know what is going on. So we have to slowly introduce it to them. But if it was someone from a Hindu background and you bring them, of course we would bring them to the RT first. So you have to cater to your audience and understand. So like when we were talking with our students, a lot of them were completely new. They had never chanted before, they'd never heard of any of this. So you have to deliver the message in a way that they can easily digest it. So Giriraj Maharaj then said, at that time I was thinking that if Prabhupada had wanted to flatter the audience or compromise his philosophy, he could have attracted millions of followers. But because he was preaching so boldly and forcefully without compromise, many of the audience did not like it, because it was a challenge to their sense gratification and to their sentiment. This is a science. This is Prabhupada speaking. This is a science. It is not a dogmatic bluffing thing. It is a science, and spoken by the Lord himself, and understood by all the acharyas. Krishna says, Acharya Upasanam. We have to understand things through the acharyas. Acharyavan Purusho Veda. One who is not following the footsteps of the acharyas, he cannot understand anything. Krishna also says, Tad Vigyarnartam. That is said in the Kathopanishad. Tad Vigyarnartam Saguram Ivabhigachat. Krishna says, Tad Vidi Pranipatena Pariprasena Sevaya. So everywhere the same instruction is there. You approach a person who is coming in disciplic succession, evam paramparas praptam, and try to learn Bhagavad Gita as it is. your life will be sublime. Your life will be successful. That is our mission. So Prabhupada is also emphasizing here that to follow the Bhagavad Gita, but not to just follow the Bhagavad Gita, but do it through disciplic succession. Try to understand it and learn it from someone who understands the Bhagavad Gita. So that's why also when we are out at the universities, I never want to just give Bhagavad Gita as it is, because they need to try and learn it from someone who knows it. And if they take the book and we never see them again, they are alone and they might misinterpret it. So better to first come, understand it from those who know the Bhagavad Gita but well, learn it from others, hear it from others, and then slowly you can start to understand and you'll start to have realizations of your own. But it's very important that we try and learn this Krishna consciousness from those that are more senior to us, because we won't understand from our own selves, from our own mental speculation. So we can stop here and see if anyone would like to share anything. Raghunath Bhatta Prabhu.
Thank you very much. The one point he was making where the topic was on modern civilization is a failure, and Prabhupada was preaching so heavily to the Indian people. And it's true that Prabhupada's classes were different when he spoke in the West. To the Indian people he would be heavy, he'd be roaring like a lion to them. You have to give up this sense gratification. So in one instance there was Giriraj Maharaj had to he met a wealthy person, the Beelers, and they invited the one Prabhupada to come, and Prabhupada agreed, so they gave a list of topics, that he could speak on, Prabhupada could speak on. The Giriraj Maharaj gave the Beeler family the topics, and they chose how to become successful. So Prabhupada went, then he spoke on how to become free from Maya. That was his talk. Because they expected him to talk like on business things, how to become a successful business person. And but Prabhupada spoke how to become free from Maya. And then also, Prabhupada's language is so heavy sometimes, you're like camels, hogs, dogs and asses. And his language is quite heavy. And sometimes in the West he mentioned that, and in one instance, but they didn't object, because as he was pointing out, because of his purity. They didn't object, and in the West, and one disciple was saying how when Prabhupada was speaking, you're thinking, why is he speaking on like this, And his parents were there or something, and their jaws just dropped, but they didn't say anything. Then, in another instance, somebody, like Prabhupada was speaking about, you'll become a dog in your next life, you'll become a cat in your next life. So one person put his hand up and said, well, I don't mind becoming a dog in my next life. And Prabhupada said, you got my blessings. So, yes. Okay. So yeah, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. So, one thing I must say that if you look at Prabhupada's age, around in the 70s, such an old person like him, none of, for example, if we become old or something, we won't be able to do all these things. But one person did so many things, established 108 temples, which was Prabhupada. So he was definitely empowered by Krishna to come up with all these things. We can't do it. We can never do it. We can never do what he did. So one thing I must say, I must really appreciate him. for most of the stuff that he did. Back I was a small kid at that time, and I went to my aunt's place, and then there was a book that was lying on the coffee table, and I see this person's face in it. So I've seen this person's picture all over, but not knowing who he is. So when I came to Krishna consciousness, then I finally realized who Prabhupada is and what he did for this movement. So anyway, 14 years ago, I had a dream. So sometimes if I have dreams, I couldn't remember. So I had a dream that someone took me to Prabhupada.
Oh wow.
And then I couldn't remember that part, what that person was saying. But I only remember what Prabhupada was saying, that don't worry, I will fix you. So it is through Srila Prabhupada's mercy that I finally got to meet my spiritual master. And it was through his mercy that I'm here with all around the devotees and everything. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I would just like to go back to Prabhupada's instructions of not using force. Under no circumstances should we do temple environment. I'll tell you of a personal instance, case where my own sister and a family went shopping, and they were harassed by booksellers, Hare Krishna devotees. Well, by the way, those devotees don't belong, well, they left the country, so they're not a threat anymore. But they left a damage is done. So much that when my sister decided to tour India with her family, they kept a safe distance away from any ISKCON temple.
Oh gosh.
So, we got to take heed to what Prabhupada said. Not only in book selling, or Sankirtan, whatever you want to call it, but in all other dealings. The other day, somebody was actually evicted from the temple property. I think that's very unethical, So we got to think about these things. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, no, it's true. We always have to be very cautious with our dealings with people, and Prabhupada would always say, before you become Krishna conscious, you should become conscious. And that also means understanding and being conscious of how we interact with people and how they are taking what we're saying. So it's a very, very important point thank you. Srila Prabhupada lilamrta ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki.